Some pictures are just more appealing than others, and you probably never knew the reason why, but actually it's because of the rule of thirds, and we'll explain that in this video. Now you may have noticed on your smartphone, your iPhone, or your camera that whenever you edit a picture, sometimes a little grid comes up that looks like a tic-tac-toe screen. And this is what's known as the rule of thirds. And the rule of thirds states that your eye is naturally drawn to where these lines intersect. There are 4 points typically on a picture. There's also a rule of 12s, but you don't want to get into that. The rule of thirds says that you should edit your picture so that the subject or the area of interest is where these lines intersect. I'll give you some examples. Not only does the rule of thirds apply to people when you take portraits, but it also applies to objects, and that is, put the subject in the crosshairs where the lines intersect. Now, a really cool feature of smartphones and the cameras on the smartphones is that it automatically pulls up that rule of thirds, that little grid for you. So in this instance, here's a pretty good picture of a model. But when I go to edit it, you'll notice two things. One, the grid appears. And now I'm going to change this so that I use that rule of thirds. And let's move her around a little bit. About right there. And that aesthetically, for some reason, is a much more pleasing photograph. Now another thing that you want to do is put the eyes somewhere on that third line. You see, this is too far down. So this is how you kind of know where you're just about right. So that looks pretty good right there. And that is just a much better looking picture than the original. Now let's try this rule of thirds from start to finish. We'll start with a photograph. I'll show you how to edit it, and we'll end up with a pretty good looking picture. I'm going to use my favorite model. Full disclosure here, this model has been trying to sleep with me for quite some time. Okay, baby. Now work it. Yeah, that's it. Yeah, give me those bedroom eyes. Perfect. Now here we have a pretty good photograph of Juno, and you'll notice that I took it kind of far back. This allows me room to crop and edit the photo. In other words, don't try to use the rule of thirds initially. Give yourself enough room to crop to the rule of thirds. Okay, so now I've got a pretty good picture of Juno, which I've downloaded to my iPad. And I could just as easily edit this on my iPhone or on my computer, but I'm using iPad here because it's a little bit bigger, a little easier for you to see. We're going to change this to an 8x10, and now we're going to edit using the rule of thirds. So to do that, all I have to do is touch the screen, and you'll see that my little grid appears, my little tic-tac-toe. So we're going to put Juno right in the where her eyes are in the crosshairs where they meet, and we'll adjust it down until we get a good looking picture. Now, a mistake that most people make is when they take a portrait of somebody or a person, and that's a pretty good picture, and that uses the rule of thirds. The mistake that most people make when they're taking photographs is they tend to do this. They tend to put the person's head right smack in the middle of the frame, and that just isn't aesthetically pleasing. It's much more pleasing to use the rule of thirds. And that's it, really. It's pretty simple. Now that you're aware of this rule of thirds, you'll start noticing when you look at photographs that you like, magazines, even television, they constantly use this rule of thirds. And I'll do a little editing magic here. I'll switch this over using very complicated software, and now I'm using the rule of thirds. You'll see that in my eyes, and I'm really in the third of the frame over here. This allows, when used in television and print, graphics to be put over here on the other side. But also, again, it's just, for some reason, more pleasing when you use the rule of thirds. And that's this lesson. Hope you enjoyed it. Now you have an assignment. Go take a picture, use the rule of thirds, and post it as a comment to this video. That lets me know that people are interested in what I'm showing them and using what I've shown them, and gives me an incentive to do the next lesson, which is depth of field. Bye.